This game was a fantastic tactical battle that was made even more intriguing by the fact that both managers are from the same school of thought. And that is the total football school of thought derived from Rinus Michels and passed down through Johan Cruyff to the likes of Guardiola and Luis Enrique, and now onto the likes of Arteta, Xavi and Ten Hag to name the most successful. And so it was always going to be interesting to see how both managers would look to nullify and exploit the other's system, considering that both are very well versed in each other's patterns and style of play. But before I go any further, let me tell you about the sponsor of today's video, OneFootball, which has become my favourite football app because it has everything you need to keep up to date with the latest news and transfers, providing you with articles to read as well as videos to watch, whilst also being excellent for keeping up to date with all the matches from across the world that are going on, providing a live ticker as well as match ratings and statistics, whilst also allowing you to check your team stats from across the whole season. If you're sick of having to use Google and Twitter to search for news and stats that you want to see, then the OneFootball app is definitely the app for you, so I'll leave it linked in the description below, and by downloading the app you will be helping to support the channel. Now before I get into the breakdown, if you only want to watch the analysis of the two Manchester United goals, I did do a separate video which I will be leaving linked in the description, where I analysed not just Rashford's goal and the own goal that Barcelona scored, but also Rashford as a player as a whole, and comparing him to Kylian Mbappe, so definitely check out that video if you are interested, it will be linked below as I've said. So what we saw from the start of this game was that when United looked to build out from the back, Luke Shaw would actually be the player to take the goal kick at the start of the game, knocking it short so that David De Gea could bring the ball out with his feet, and the reasoning behind this to me was that it would then allow Shaw to hold his position on the left side, with De Gea moving the ball slightly over to the right, which would then entice Gavi into pressing him, with Lewandowski then sitting on Shaw, and Pedri on Casemiro, and so this would allow Rafael Varane to make a movement in behind Gavi, either pulling wide and deep, or pushing up and central to open up a passing lane, allowing David De Gea to move the ball in behind Gavi. However, Barcelona adapted pretty quickly to this pretty inventive way of beating the press by having Lewandowski still press De Gea, but in doing so he would position himself to cut off the passing lane into Luke Shaw, allowing Gavi to hold his position on Varane, with Pedri man-to-man pressing Casemiro and Alba on the left doing the same to Wan-Bissaka, with Rafinha on Barcelona's right following Malacia as he pushed down the flank. And so now all of David De Gea's short passing options were now being closed off. But Ten Hag was prepared for this, and this is why he used Weghorst in what was really a central midfield position, something that seemed very odd at the start of the game initially, but it was actually an insanely inventive way of allowing United to progress the ball up the pitch without having to play out through Barcelona's man-to-man press, via a series of short passes in United's defensive third, which obviously can be very risky, as if United were to lose the ball in this area, then straight away Barcelona are going to be able to attack United directly, which has a high probability of resulting in a clear-cut chance. And Ten Hag's master plan was to essentially use Weghorst as a withdrawn target man, or a central midfielder being used as a target man, which is very reminiscent of how we saw Mourinho and Louis van Gaal use Fellaini during various different periods in their United tenure. And so we saw that when De Gea's short passing options were being closed off by Barcelona's man-to-man pressing, and Lewandowski cutting the passing lane into Shaw, De Gea would look to go long, aiming for Weghorst, who like Fred would be positioned in a pretty advanced position for the build-up phase, almost forming a front five alongside Sancho and Fernandes either side on the flanks, with Rashford playing as a centre forward. And this was a reasonably fruitful avenue for progressing the ball into the middle third for United, with Weghorst having the physicality and aerial ability to challenge with Kessie when De Gea launched the ball long, as Weghorst would look to control the ball in his chest or bring the ball down or just nod it down into the path of one of the four United players in close proximity, allowing United to then retain possession in the middle third. However, the issue with going long is that even if you have a player of Weghorst's aerial ability that you are using as your target man, a large percentage of the attempts are going to result in the opposition regaining possession rather than the player receiving the aerial ball and retaining possession the majority of the time, and so this is why we did see Barcelona having more of the ball throughout the match. Although saying this, United were eventually able to play out of their defensive third as the game went on, and this was because Barcelona inevitably couldn't sustain this sort of intensity in their aggressive press throughout the whole match, And so when Lewandowski and Gavi had to reduce how quick they were to apply pressure to United's deeper possession unit, this gave United, or Shaw in particular, the time and space to move out with the ball. But I also think that Ten Hag's possession system definitely contributed to this, and in particular the utilisation of Fred and Weghorst in these very advanced positions. Now we are used to seeing United use two central midfielders ahead of Casemiro almost as free eights, pushing up and often slightly wider as well, but it's usually not this high, to the point where they are level with Sancho and Fernandes either side of them, who are retaining their high and wide positions. Now the first reason Ten Hag wanted to use Fred and Weghorst in these high positions was obviously so that United could use Weghorst as a target man to play long balls into, and by having Fred in a high position as well, you then also have an extra player who can compete for the second balls when it does get knocked down from Weghorst's aerial challenge, and Fred is a good player for this, as he generally has very good anticipation and awareness of where the ball is likely to drop, and he's also quick and combative enough to get over and put in a challenge to win the ball. But the second reason was because Xavi was always going to utilise a strict man-to-man pressing system on United in their build-up, and so both Kessie and De Jong were subsequently forced backwards with Fred and Weghorst, leaving a massive distance between the deeper half of the Barcelona defensive shape and the higher half, which therefore meant that Barcelona's front three or front four in the press became isolated from the rest of the team, allowing either Shaw or Varane a lot of space to stride out when they were able to work the ball around Barcelona's frontline press. Now when United were able to progress the ball out of their defensive third, we also saw them go a lot more direct than we do usually see them do in the Premier League. Usually what happens when United beat the press and work the ball into the middle third is that the opposition will likely drop off behind the ball into their defensive shape, usually a 4-5-1 or a 4-4-2 of sorts, and then we'll see Ten Hag's side morph from a 2-3-2-3 that they use in a defensive third to a 3-1-6 shape or a 3-1-3-3. With one of the fullbacks dropping into the back three, giving United that wide base to circulate the ball around the opposition's front line more efficiently. And then from here United are tasked with breaking through the opposition's defensive shape, and so we do see them play a lot of short passes, working the ball from side to side, and looking to open up spaces between the opposition's midfield line, so that the ball can be worked into the players between the lines, primarily in the half spaces, or if this isn't possible, pushing the opposition back into their defensive third, and funneling the attacks down the flanks. However, because Barcelona deployed a pretty high defensive line, even in situations where they didn't have players directly applying pressure to the player on the ball, United were able to play a lot of direct passes over the back line, looking to release the likes of Rashford and Fernandes, who are making those bursting runs into the space in behind the Barcelona defence. And United were able to get in a few times with Rashford's runs from central positions and Fernandes' runs from the right side. And so exploiting Barcelona's high defensive line appeared to be the best avenue towards creating chances for United in this game. And we saw this with one of the best opportunities of the whole match, which fell to Weghorst. We see here as Fernandes has the ball in the centre of the pitch that Weghorst has pushed up from his makeshift central midfield position into what you'd regard as his usual centre forward position. Now I don't know what Koundé is doing, he seems to just completely switch off, when all he has to do is simply drop back a few yards to get level with Weghorst, but credit to the Dutchman, he sees and exploits the space, and because Rashford is not stuck on the left, but instead allowed to float from a central position over to the space between Alonso and Alba on the left, Alonso's attention is then drawn to his left side, and because Koundé hasn't dropped back, Weghorst is now able to open up a perfect passing lane for Bruno Fernandes to thread a beautifully weighted through ball, finding his run. And the only thing that lets Weghorst down in this position, other than obviously his finish, is his pace, as he has a head start on both centre backs, but you can just see that with every stride Koundé is catching him, and in the end the former Sevilla man does very well to get across, stopping him being able to get the shot away as he would like, allowing ter Stegen to make the save. And so in this game we really saw Ten Hag adapt his possession style, showing that he can be pragmatic and flexible, moving away from a more methodical possession style to what most would consider a very direct style of play. And using Weghorst in central midfield in almost that Fellaini role does show Ten Hag's tactical flexibility and willingness to think outside of the box. The first United goal scored by Rashford did come from a counter-pressing situation where United won the ball back in Barcelona's half, and the second goal came from a moment of brilliance from Rashford on the right side, beating his man and forcing the own goal, which gave United the lead at that point. If you do want a more in-depth analysis of the two goals, as I said before, that video will be linked in the description, and I am also planning to do a video looking at the pressing shape that United used, and I think I will start breaking up these match analysis videos into different parts, so I can analyse different parts of the tactical play in greater detail. So if you did enjoy this video, make sure you subscribe to the channel. You can go to the description to check out some of my other videos as well. Put your thoughts in the comment section below, and you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram for more content as well.